Yamini Sita Lakshmi from VMware to talk about service virtualization.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to my session on service virtualization. My name is Yamini and I'm a senior application developer at VMware. And my co-author is Nandana. She's an associate QA engineer as well. Can I have the slide changer, please? Uh, so these are the topics that I plan to cover today. First, I'll be talking about what are the challenges that we face in our enterprise today and the needs for service virtualization. Then I'll be giving you guys a brief overview on what service virtualization is all about and what are the basic principles that govern service virtualization. We'll also go through some benefits of service virtualization, what it has to offer, the adoption of service virtualization, as well as some of the current market trends in this segment. We'll also go through some case studies and then I'll have some demo clips to show you on how we have implemented service virtualization. I'll then have the floor open for Q&A. What are the problems in our enterprise today, right? What happens is either you're developing a mobile application or a website, there are a lot of things that happen in the background. For example, you might need to access a JDBC database to get the data or take it from a file. You might also need to integrate with several other protocols that any system offers you. And you're always asked to deliver applications faster and quicker into the market and with the same quality, right? And if at all you need to develop a new web service for your mobile or the portal that you're developing, and you need to sort of depend on a third-party application to give you that particular API, then there are certain things that are not under your control when it comes to a third-party system, because you don't know whether when they are going to be unavailable, and sometimes you also end up waiting for them to complete their development so that you can begin using them, right? So in such a complex system wherein you are working with years of IT investment, how do you test all the systems, right, end to end? Another part to the same problem is, for example, in any integrated release for a month, we have regular PRB projects, we have bug fixes going on, we have the roadmap projects that we have, we even have infrastructure upgrades. So you have a lot of different teams that are working on different parts of the code and deploying it to the different environments that we have today. Now, what happens is that the more time it takes for you to detect a bug, if you don't find it in the dev, it goes to QA or UAT, the more time it takes to resolve that. And it becomes more labor intensive and we also have to bear the calendar cost associated with it. Now the mean time to resolution also becomes very high. And sometimes in your development environment, you need to wait until every system is ready to begin your dev integration testing, right? And in QA and UAT, what you need, sometimes the issues that you face is that all these integrated environments, for example, for any project with us, right, we'll have 10 different systems and 15 different projects that are going in. So you need all of them to come together and integrate each of them, and they need to be up and running. And there are some other challenges that you face, right? Sometimes there are not enough application instances for the system that you're referring to, so you end up sharing them with other project teams. So you're like having just 1 hour to execute all your test cases. You might have 150, so imagine your problem, right? And the test data preparation for a complex project might be extremely painstakingly slow, right? And the automation of test cases are defined to those well-defined test cases for those that you have relevant test data. Now, these are some of the challenges that gives rise to the need for adopting service virtualization, which means that you can actually virtualize the source and the target environments that you have with you, or virtualize the integrations that you depend on these systems for. What is service virtualization? In simple terms, it means that you're trying to emulate the behavior of a particular system, application, or a component. Now, when we talk about service virtualization, sometimes we ask the question, what is the difference between service virtualization and the stubs and mocks? What has service virtualization done that stubs has not? Stubs were mainly for a workaround. Right now, imagine take a case of two teams, wherein the team A is waiting for the team B to complete their work so that team A can start doing their work. So this is when we had started introducing stubs, wherein we started mocking the functionality of the system that is under constraint. Okay, but what happened is, with this approach, we started getting undetectable and complex bugs, because the stubs are not the final behavior or the actual reflection of the system that you're trying to emulate. Whereas service virtualization is not a workaround, it is a technology. It actually helps you bring in more intelligence to the system that you're trying to emulate, right? And it also helps build stateful transactions into the virtual service asset that you're creating. So to sum it up, it's more robust, it is more live-like the actual system that you're trying to emulate here. Now I'll walk you guys through some of the basics and the principles of service virtualization. What happens is, service virtualization helps you create assets called as a virtual service, which is nothing but a system generated software object which contains a meaningful conversations between two systems, right? Now, how do you develop a virtual service? The asset is by applying three basic principles that govern service virtualization, which is capture, model, and simulate. So in the capture step, what you do is, you actually deploy a listener in between the two systems, right? System A being the system under test, and system B being the system under virtualization. So here you are trying to actually virtualize a system B, right? And so the listener, what it does is, it records the conversation between these two systems wherein the traffic is going on. And once you capture that, now you need to model the virtual service. How do you model that? You actually apply some algorithms, or based on the service virtualization solution that you have with you, you not only make sure that the virtual service responds to the positive scenarios, but also to the negative scenarios and the edge conditions, right? And one more thing to notice is that while you're trying to deploy a listener, now your virtualized, the service virtualization solution that you have with you should give you some sort of an automation to deploy a listener, or it should have a listener for you to capture your conversation. Otherwise, you're again doing the stub development, right? The third step is the simulate. So now you have modeled your virtual service. What you need to do is deploy that virtual service onto a virtual service environment, and then make it as a reliable stand-in for the system that you're trying to emulate. So how have we enabled service virtualization in our company? We have these real instances that you see here. They are some of the systems either on-premise or on cloud that we have tried to virtualize, and we have the corresponding virtual instances. And we have our integration platform, which is nothing but our web services layer or batch job layer, wherein we have a switch at that end to refer to either a real instance or the virtual instance. Now we have all our parallel release instances, and for any release, integrated release cycle, our release captain looks at the number of projects that we have and okays whatever projects that can be SV enabled, and based on that we make the switch at our end to either refer to a virtual service or the real instance. Now I also wanted to cover the topic on service virtualization and testing, right? The obvious benefit of service virtualization is in the fact that you can have the QA team come in early in the development cycle and start testing early and more often. So service virtualization is actually agnostic to your development approach, be it a waterfall model, be it an agile or a DevOps. You can always have your testing even in your dev as well as in the QA. So it actually helps you automate your regression test cases as well as enables continuous testing. I also wanted to give you guys some information on what are the companies that have service virtualization products, right? And so the table here suggests that the sum of the companies that have service virtualization products and what is their position in the market, and what are the and on what criteria were they evaluated, right? And I also wanted to give you guys an information on what are the trends in the virtualization segment. Now, I don't need to delve too much upon it. I think in the GHC you are already getting to listen to most of the virtualization trends. So on a high level, they are virtual and cloud-based labs and network virtualization in addition to service virtualization. Now I'll walk you guys through over some case studies on implementing service virtualization, right? The first one is where we are trying to virtualize a SaaS application. So we have our vendor management system here. It has a lot of integrations with our ERP via the integration platform, via our web services. So there are a lot of integrations for invoices, for project data, users, cost centers, company codes, all that is flowing from our vendor management system to our ERP and back, right? Now, so we developed the virtual services for the vendor management system based on the three-step principle that I had told you, capture, model, and simulate. So in the capture stage, we deployed a listener between the integration platform and the virtual and the vendor management system to listen to the traffic. Once we recorded that, what we did was we modeled the virtual service, right? And how did we model it? We not only modeled it to give us the positive outcomes, but also in such a way that, for example, if a project is coming in when the cost center for it is not defined in the vendor management system. Now the vendor management system will always give you an error back, an error response saying that the cost center is not found for this project, right? So we modeled the virtual service in such a way that it gives a similar error response for that same test data. How you can, so how we did it is we just had it read it from a data source of our choice. It could be anything, it could be a database, it could be even an Excel file, wherein it compares the data that is coming from ERP, validates it to the cost centers that are available, and then gives you the response accordingly. So one of the best thing about this implementation was that when the vendor management system was actually down, our project did not get impacted by it because we still had our virtual services which we could use to get this integration going. Another case study is about virtualizing an on-premise app, right? Wherein we have our rules engine, which we wanted to virtualize. So here, how the flow works is that we have a CRM application and our ERP system, right? Wherein we have objects like accounts, leads, and opportunities, as well as orders that are flowing in from these systems to our rules engine to get the territory stamped in those records, and those responses flow back to the source system via the integration platform. So it is basically a batch job that runs. There was one unique thing about this integration. What was that is the number of transactions that are coming in for each of the runs, for each of those batch job was dynamic because it was inside our batch job, right? So what we had to do was for the virtual service, we had to include so much dynamism so that we had to develop some custom functionality, but that still was as part of our service virtualization solution. So what we had was we had a request handler which used to take the request that is coming in from the batch job, take all the values and strip off the rest of the request that is coming in, and then give the values over to the database integrator. Once we had the database integrator module, what it did was it used to take that, form a query, and connect to the external DB to get the territory values. Once we got the territory values, in the response generator, we assigned a free marker template to make sure that we emulate the response of the business rules engine, and then we used to give that over there. Now let's, so we just covered what are the case studies, one for virtualizing an on-prem and one for virtualizing a SaaS application. what are the benefits of service virtualization, right? One is the obvious instance cost savings associated with it. So if you're virtualizing a system, you don't need so many instances that you want to refer to, and you can give away. So that is one of the important benefit. The other one is the availability of services. So the virtual services are available 24/7, and it is not dependent on the actual system, right? And you have this unlimited instance capacity, which means these virtual services can be shared across different project teams. You are no longer fighting or sharing for the application instances, right? And the other important aspect is your shift left quality, wherein your the DevOps model, right, wherein you have the QA come in and start earlier and testing continuously. Now this table gives you a high level overview of the annual instance cost savings with the virtual services that we have developed for each of these applications. Now we have a demo. Is it? Okay, no time for the demo. Okay, due to I don't understand. It's 4:15 to 4:45. Yeah. So this is the first demo that I'm going to show you guys. It's about a supplier interface as well as a PR import interface, wherein you do everything similar to what you had done before, but in the back end, you're actually referring to the virtual services. So I think it's taking a bit of time to get started. Yeah. So the supplier interface is an interface that takes the suppliers and interfaces it to our PR approval system, which is Coupa. So what happens is that you run the concurrent program and it generates a file in Coupa. Now, since Coupa is not there, you're generating the file in your SV, service virtualized environment. And that file, once you run a service, for example, Coupa used to do it internally. So now what you do is you run a virtual service which will take that file and insert it into our custom database, right? And we also have another interface called as PR import. Now that is flowing back. So it is from Coupa to our ERP application. So what happens is when you run a virtual service, it is as though you are trying to generate the pending approval PRs from your PR approval system. So now since your system is not there, you're making your virtualized service do that for you. So you're actually running a web service and you're taking the file generated from that system and then running your PR import interface in your ERP application, the concurrent program, and that takes the file from the SV instance instead of your actual Coupa instance and then takes it back into your ERP tables. Can we have the other slide, the other demo, please? So this is the SaaS implementation that I was talking to you about, our vendor management system. This is not, this is more from the web services layer that I've showed you. So the web services that we had developed will actually call the virtual service instead of the real service. Is it playing? It's not playing? Yeah, it's not playing. Okay, no worries. So, sorry? That is also fine. If you can play the link, that will be helpful. The second video is not playing. No, no, no. It's the, I meant it's the first one according to it. First one. Yeah, first one. Okay, I think there seems to be some glitch here. We are not able to, unfortunately, play the second clip. But what I wanted to show was the from the web services, when we invoke the virtual service, how it actually gave you the response for a positive and a negative test case. So that's what I wanted to show you. But now I am having the floor open for Q&A. Any questions? Who is asking that? Yeah, go ahead.
We have an integrated system which is some part is on cloud, some on premises. For example, the legacy is on premises. And in the cloud, I want to execute some testing. Can I run service virtualization for the legacy which I have on premises?
Yes, see, the question here is which of these systems are you trying to virtualize, right? It doesn't matter whether it is in the cloud or it is an on-premise app.
Okay.
The question is what system you're trying to virtualize. Now, the integration between that system and others is what you need to test after you have developed something called as a virtual service for the system that you're trying to emulate.
Okay, after I create the virtualization of the legacy, how do I integrate and do a testing? I need to pass on the virtualization onto the cloud, then run a test there?
No, nothing like that. So if you're having, for an example here I did, right, my ERP was calling a web service, and via a web service a third party application was being called. Now I am actually, that third party application is nothing but a cloud app, right? So I am trying to emulate the behavior of that cloud app. So once I develop a virtual service that emulates this behavior, what I do is I still do what I had done to test it without the virtual service, which was my concurrent program from my ERP system. Once I do that job, it calls my web service, but my web service is actually not calling that third party app. It is actually calling my virtual service and getting the response from there.
Oh.
So however you've been testing it, you need to test it the same way. But wherever you're calling the actual application, you need to call your virtual service.
So service virtualization is working for existing services, right? But what if you are having some new functionality which you're deploying for the first time? That is where we usually use stubs, right? So I didn't get the point how service virtualization can be used instead of stubs.
Even for new services, if you know your handshake, how it functions, you can still emulate that behavior via the virtual service.
But how will it intercept the traffic? How will you get enough request response packages for it?
It need not be by intercepting a traffic. It can even be like a test data sort of a virtualization.
Oh, so we can provide test data.
It depends on the virtual service solution that you have at your end.
Okay, thank you.
One question is, in the virtualization, when we virtualize a service, right, there are only few patterns that you can virtualize. What about the exception conditions, error conditions? We tried Lisa for some time,
Okay.
which was similar to this service virtualization.
Yeah.
But all the type of responses that we get, like for example, if I'm trying to virtualize a search,
That, right? So
Forget stubs. Even if we did not have stubs, from end to end, how long did it take you? Like
the vendor
2 months,
management,
3 months?
no, no, in terms of days actually.
Okay.
2 or 3 days max. That's all
Really?
it took. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's exactly the concern that we have, right? So what happens is, although you don't know anything about the system, like for example, Coupa, our PR approval system, we didn't know anything about it. We did not have any environment. We didn't even have the web services. All we had was some documentation which said, this is the way the URL will look like. This is the way you might need to give input, and this is the way you need to give output. So those sort of things are enough for you to get started to develop a virtual service in such a less time, and then give it to your team that is actually waiting for something, right? So that something should be enough for you to cover. Meanwhile, you can keep working on the information that you have to model that web service and make it more like the system that you're trying to understand. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, I see a hand there. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. The mic is coming over.
So in this process, the test data is static and not dynamic, right?
No, that's the exact point that I was trying to make. So that all depends on your modeling and test data management. So that is one of the main, another benefit of service virtualization is wherein you can effectively manage your test data. So again, I'll take the example of the on-prem app that I was trying to build. So we even had a external DB configured for this particular virtual service, so that we had a lot of dynamic data that was coming in. So no matter what sort of a data that came in, everything could get a territory stamp to it.
So you're saying apart from the recorded data, the service will be written in such a way it will morph
Exactly.
the data.
Exactly. It is not just about the recording, it is also about modeling. Modeling is also an important part.
Then isn't that it is we are building a parallel service for every dependent service?
No, you need to take a call. You don't need, you shouldn't end up maintaining another big application, just like the one that you're trying to emulate. You should model it in such a way that you have some sort of a generic service that you're, virtual service that you're developing, which can handle multiple functionalities as well as cater to the edge conditions.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Yamini. Thank you
thank you,
for your
guys. Thank
insights.
you.
I would request Bharti to give away the memento.
Thank you so much.